to go back to his mom. He asks her to help him get out of there, but it turns out this little punk is holding a sharp knife. No surprise if he's one of those specially trained kids here to assist Rachel to assassinate her. Back to the senior-junior showdown. She pulls out another knife and tries to hit him, but he jumps out of the way. She goes for another slash, but he ducks and avoids her. He grabs her hand, and she tells him to stop resisting because they're just trying to free him from everyone's control. Just then, he gets momentarily distracted, and Rachel seizes the moment. She pulls her hand free and swings her dagger at his face, slicing his cheek with deadly accuracy. He stumbles but quickly gets his footing. He grabs 2 cans from a nearby shelf and chucks them at her face, but she just knocks them away and tells him to let the old hag die. If he does, he can head back to the dead mansion whenever he wants. Sean then grabs a packet of flour and throws it right at her face. She makes the dumb mistake of slashing at the flour packet, sending it floating through the air and blocking her view. While struggling to breathe through the flour, she doesn't notice the scissors coming her way. Thanks to her quick reflexes, she narrowly avoids a serious cut, ending up with just a small mark on her face and her hair slightly trimmed. She quickly steps back, but Sean takes another swing at her. She drops to the floor, and with a crazy grin she gets back up and comes at him with her blades. Their strengths seem pretty evenly matched. Or maybe he's just better than his teacher now. Before she can figure out her next move, he grabs her hand and shoves her into a grocery cart, leaving her stuck inside like a little kid. Sean gives her a cold stare and asks if she has learned her lesson, but the woman just grunts in frustration. Sean tells her to leave him and his mother alone, then kicks her cart forward, leaving her slamming into the other carts lined up, and he quickly locks her cart with the rest. With a smirk, he tells her to enjoy herself and walks off, leaving her stuck and grumbling. Back to the little maniac kid, he sees his chance and swings his dagger at her chest while she's looking away. But Sean swoops in just in time, leaving the little kid stunned right there. The mother's confused, wondering why he's here when he should be at school and why his clothes are all messed up. Meanwhile, the kid on the ground recognizes Sean as the legend of the dead mansion and figures that if Sean's here, Rachel must have already been beaten by him. The woman explains that this little guy has lost his mother. Sean asks the kid for his parents' phone number, but the kid acts clueless and starts fake crying as he runs toward Hyunho's mother. Sean quickly grabs him, lifts him up, and tells him to stop whining. He then gets close to the kid's ear and asks him if he hasn't learned that sticking out too much just makes people dislike you. He further playfully threatens the kid with some cryptic talk and gives him a little slap, making the dagger the kid was holding drop. Sean quickly steps on the dagger to hide it, and that one slap was enough to knock the kid out cold. After that little showdown, we're back at the dead mansion. The director wakes up in the middle of the night because of an unexpected phone call. Grumbling, he throws on his gown and heads to the phone, hoping for some good news to make this early wake-up worth it. When he hears the caller's voice, a smile spreads across his face as he recognizes it's Sean on the line. He asks the old man if he really thought he could catch him with just Rachel and that little kid, Eugene. The old man's face quickly goes pale as he asks if Rachel is dead. Sean doesn't give him a direct answer, just says that no matter how many people he sends, the result will be the same. He can send as many as he wants, but it won't change a thing. The old man gets really worked up when he hears Sean is taking on the entire dead mansion instead of running away. Sean makes it clear that if there's a threat to the parents' safety, he'll handle it based on the third principle. He's more than ready to stick to the rules because he sees the dead mansion as a real threat and will react accordingly. The old man, now on the ground and naked, breaks into a wide grin and starts laughing maniacally. He's overjoyed to see that the kid he raised is surpassing his expectations and thinks of Sean as a divine gift, perfectly following the 3 principles. He wishes Sean good luck and tells him to send the little kid back, promising not to attack the lady if Sean does that. Sean then tells the old man to call Rachel back, and the director just gets even more excited. Can't wait to meet Sean face to face. Sean tells Eugene to wake the hell up. As soon as this little brat opens his eyes, he goes on high alert. Sean informs him that he's already taken away all the weapons he was hiding, so he should save his breath instead of looking for them. He further tells the kid to eat the food since he hasn't had anything to eat. Eugene hesitates at first, but soon devours all the food in no time. Once they start heading out, Sean asks if he liked the food. But this moody brat replies, "Not really." Sean cheekily points out that if he didn't like it, he wouldn't have chowed down like a wild dog. While they're bantering, Rachel finally shows up and looks relieved to see that the kid is alive. Rachel quickly calls the kid over and he meekly walks toward her. Sean tells Rachel to take the food and make sure to fill her belly too. But this woman gives him a cold look, saying he shouldn't act so cool and chill because she hasn't given up on him yet. She walks off, saying they'll meet again soon. Rachel then starts scolding the little kid, asking why an annoying brat like him couldn't take down the old woman. Eugene apologizes for failing, and Rachel, annoyed, dismisses him. She tells him that useless brats like him should have been dealt with a long time ago. Her words make the kid shiver, and he apologizes again. Just then, Sean calls out to the kid from behind, asking if the tteokbokki he ate was tasty, and he is asking this for one last time, so he better question wisely. The kid tilts his head and, with tears streaming down his face, he says it was tasty. That's all Sean wanted to hear, and he wastes no time telling Eugene they're going back to Hyunho's snack bar to taste this delicious delight once again. Before we dive further into the story, here's a quick rundown of Eugene's past. As you might already know, the ownership of the children from the dead mansion belongs to the buyers, or parents. If these parents die, ownership reverts back to the dead mansion. Eugene had been adopted multiple times, but each time his parents died. This cycle continued, and after yet another return due to the death of his latest owner, the director was disappointed and muttered about how many times it had happened. The boy quickly responded that it was the 4th time, but the old man snapped that he didn't ask for an answer. The director then stated they would continue to profit by sending Eugene to new families, but failing to keep his parents alive 4 times was the worst disgrace in the history of the dead mansion. He didn't shy away from reminding Eugene that if this continued, they would have no choice but to dispose of him. The old man asks the kid if he knows what happens to children who get disposed of. With those little graves behind him, the kid can pretty much guess what's coming. The old man tells him he'll need to become someone important. He's got one last shot. Go to Korea and help Rachel get Sean. If he screws this up too, he's definitely done for. In the present moment, Rachel coldly reminds him that, right now, he's already considered disposed of. Freaked out and desperate to prove himself, the kid begs for another chance. Rachel just gives him an icy stare. While the kid is freaking out because of what's coming, Sean steps in to save the kid. He asks if he wants to enjoy some delicious food again. The crummy woman jumps at the chance and tells the little kid that he's been given one last shot and he has to kill that old woman. Hearing this, the kid is on the verge of tears. Realizing he's been granted a final chance to prove himself, he starts crying and quickly says the food was delicious. So, while we thought this crummy little brat was just thrilled because Sean wanted to free him, it turns out he's actually just grateful for another shot at redemption. On the other hand, Sean cracks his wrists, ready to take the kid back to the snack shop. Rachel can tell that he still sees her as a threat to the parent, so she's sure he's prepared to fight if necessary. Even though she would happily hand Eugene over, Rachel gets dramatic, asking why Sean is taking him after promising to let them go if they spared the old woman. Sean simply shrugs and says the kid wants to stay himself, and since he finds the food delicious, he has no choice but to take him with him. She finally resigns, and decides to let Eugene go with Sean. Before the little kid heads over to Sean, Rachel cryptically reminds him that this is his last chance and he better make it worthwhile. With that, the kid quickly walks over to Sean. Rachel then points out that since he's keeping the child and breaking his promise to let them leave, she declares that she'll also break her promise, and will always look for a chance to attack the old lady. Sean simply grabs the brat's hand and tells Rachel to do as she wishes. He adds that he won't hesitate to break her into pieces over and over again if she tries. Later, we're back at Hyunho's house. Sean pretends to yell at the little boy in front of Hyunho's mother. The woman quickly tells him to calm down and reminds him that he's the one who decided to look after the kid for the day. The boy admits it, but adds he doesn't want any more freeloaders crashing at her place for free food. The woman says she's perfectly fine with that. She also finds it interesting that this kid's mother is friends with Sean's mother. It turns out the truth isn't far off, as Sean's mother and this little brat are actually the same Rachel in disguise. The lady offers for them to stay, but Sean says it's not necessary. However, the little brat quickly thanks the woman, saying he'll be under her care from now on. Well, he can't let this opportunity slip because he wants to take her out at all costs. He then introduces himself as Eugene. Meanwhile, Sean is feeling a bit overwhelmed, as this is his first time at Hyunho's house. Sean asks if the room over there belongs to Hyunho, and she says it does. He asks if he can go inside, and the mother gives him the go-ahead. Sean walks into the room and finds it pretty ordinary, like something out of a drama or movie. It's the kind of room that feels like a moderately happy family lives there, with a vibe of everyday life and comfort. The room gives off a sense of warmth and normalcy that Sean has always longed for. It's the kind of typical family space he wished he could have been part of. He thinks Hyunho should have been here, living a happy, normal life, rather than being caught up in all the chaos. Once the brat finishes his meal, he thanks the lady and compliments her, saying everything was perfect, especially the omelet. The woman is pleased with the compliment. Then, the kid asks if he can ask her a question, and she agrees. He asks if, besides her son, there's any other family member living here, like a father. The woman is a bit caught off guard by the question and isn't sure how to respond. She tries to keep it light and says that unfortunately, her husband was needed so much in heaven that she had to let him go. The kid asks if he became a family member in heaven, to which the lady says that's pretty much it. Then, the kid points out that her son hasn't gone to heaven and hasn't returned home either. The woman is puzzled by this strange response. The kid continues, saying that a weak, useless child can't become family anywhere. The woman looks even more confused. The boy explains that a family is about fulfilling others' needs and proving one's worth to its members. Otherwise, they're just obstacles consuming resources, like her son who's in the hospital and unable to do anything. The lady is really pissed off and jumps up, saying that's completely wrong because that's not what a family is. The kid curiously asks what a family is then. But before she can answer, Sean playfully grabs the kid from behind and starts dragging him, asking if they can sleep in the living room. The woman agrees and mentions that Hyunho's room is empty, but Sean states that he can sleep in the living room over the sofas and the kid will just sleep on the floor. The mother's eyes warm up at their playful sight. As midnight strikes, we see Eugene's face is set in a scowl. It's clear that his displeasure stems from the fact that Sean is making him sleep over on the floor. He then notices light coming from Hyunho's room and decides to check it out. As he peeks inside, he sees the old woman sitting in a chair, looking at her son's photo. Eugene finds it odd that this woman calls her useless child a family, and even welcomes strangers like him as a family, whom she has never met before. He reflects on his own life, where a child's worth is measured by what they can produce for the family. He can't understand how being a so-called useless child can be considered family. Eugene quickly grabs the gun, aiming it at the old woman with trembling hands. He's desperate to prove his worth and become a necessary family member, believing that killing her is the only way to do it. But despite his determination, he just stands there, unable to pull the trigger. Sean quietly closes the door in front of him and sternly asks if this is really what Eugene wants to do. Eugene's hands shake as he looks at Sean and admits he's just following orders. He then quickly turns the gun on our boy, telling him not to interfere. As he pulls the trigger, no bullet fires. Seeing this, Eugene looks puzzled, wondering why the gun is empty. Sean then scatters all those bullets down on the ground and reveals that he had already taken all the bullets away while Eugene was sleeping. He also knows that Rachel was the one who gave him the gun. Sean gives this brat death glares and extends his hand to grab the gun, pointing out that it's a 15-round 9mm parabellum that weighs 112.5 grams. He says the kid should have noticed the magazine was empty when he held the gun and reminds him he's still just an amateur. Annoyed by the remark, the brat grabs his blade and tries to swing it at Sean. But he ends up pinned to the door by Sean, and as he turns the handle, the door swings open, sending them both crashing into the room. The little one quickly gets to his feet. Fortunately, the mother is still asleep at her desk and hasn't noticed the commotion. Sean gestures to the brat to keep quiet. But the little brat sees an opportunity and rushes forward. Sean quickly grabs that tie nearby, traps Eugene's feet with it, and makes him fall. But the kid manages to swing his blade and cut the tie almost immediately. Sean tells the kid to be a good little boy, but the kid's too stubborn. He leaps at Sean, trying to slash him with his tiny daggers. They go at it like two hyper ninjas, and it's clear Sean's holding back. This just makes Eugene even more furious, and he swings his dagger again, insisting Sean face him properly. Sean agrees, and before Eugene knows it, Sean has taken the dagger from his hand. The brat, frustrated, throws his other dagger at the lady, but Sean deflects it easily. He then pushes Eugene's feet against his own, causing him to fall. To keep the noise down, Sean quickly grabs the kid by his shirt before he hits the ground. Sean tells him with a smirk that he hasn't even started, and yet the brat is already down. But the little one just smiles in response, thrilled to be fighting the legendary figure from the dead mansion. Just as Sean is holding him, the mother slams a book over his head with a fury that could only come from the most dangerous person on the planet. She's absolutely livid that Sean is picking a fight with a little kid. Our boy quickly tries to reassure the angry mother that this isn't what it looks like. Meanwhile, the little brat grabs the dagger from the ground, seizing the opportunity to strike. Sean gives him a death glare and tells him to stop. Then, Sean quickly grabs the little one by the shoulders, reassuring the mother that they're just buddies having a morning exercise session and that the dagger is just a toy. Seems like this little one is still fixated on killing the woman, but realizes he won't get any chance while Sean is around, so he starts to think of a sneakier approach to get the job done. The lady turns to Eugene and tells him he shouldn't pick fights with his big brother because they're all one family under one roof. The word family catches Eugene off guard again, and he gets somber, finally asking why he's being considered part of this family. Sean quickly reminds him that they eat together and sleep under the same roof. The woman agrees and pats Eugene, saying that since he's living here, he's already part of the family. Just then, someone knocks on the door, calling out to see if anyone is inside. The mother goes to answer and, upon opening the door, finds a young high school girl. Well, or should I say, Rachel in disguise. Anyway, she greets the lady as Mother, apologizes for arriving so early, and introduces herself as Marie, Eugene's older sister. Rachel, in her Marie disguise, thanks the mother for taking care of Eugene. Sean peeks over and asks who's at the door. The mother tells him Eugene's sister has arrived to pick him up. Sean recognizes who this sister really is, so he steps outside to greet her. He asks Rachel what brings her here, and she simply says she's here to pick Eugene up. Rachel drops the little sister act and cheekily explains that she's there to take the boy back for the woman's safety. As agreed, Sean then asks if she's the one who ordered Eugene to kill the mother. Rachel leans in and whispers that it was just a temporary order from her, and there's nothing to worry about. Sean tells her, first of all, to put away the knives she's hiding before saying that. She tells our boy not to worry and reassures him that as long as he cooperates, there's nothing to fear. Sean is a bit creeped out by how casually she's threatening him and asks what happens if he doesn't cooperate. Suddenly, Eugene bursts out with a big smile, asking why his sister took so long to get here. He hugs her right away, and she's all dramatic, showing her happiness at seeing him. But while she's being all cheerful, she quietly reminds Eugene that he's failed again and that the director will be pretty disappointed. Eugene snaps at her, asking if she's playing dumb or something. He explains that he hasn't ditched his mission, he's just trying to blend in with these people as family before making his move against the woman. He reminds her that the mother is guarded by the legendary hand of the dead mansion. He might look like an unattractive dumb monkey, but he's no ordinary Joe. In fact, he has fought Sean many times and failed miserably each time. Rachel agrees, saying he really does look like a kind of fool monkey. She apologizes for messing up his operation but reassures him there's nothing to worry about right now. They're ditching their current mission and heading back to the dead mansion right away. As Rachel extends her hand, the boy grabs it quietly, ready to leave with her. They announce they're heading out, and while Rachel shakes hands for a final goodbye, the little boy turns his head, telling her to let's go, probably because he doesn't want to look at the mother. He starts walking away with her. Just then, the mother calls out to Eugene, smiling and telling him to come back next time, and promises to make him an omelet just for him. The little one looks back at the mother with a touch of admiration, offering a faint smile and a simple nod to show he heard her. The mother then tells Sean to make sure to visit again with Eugene. She promises to cook up something nice for them both. Sean agrees and says he'll definitely bring Eugene along next time. The next day, we're at the school principal's office. The principal starts by apologizing for the delay, explaining that the school had to go through several committees to decide on the punishments, which took some time. He gives her the good news that the perpetrator's parents have promised to cover the damages and all the offending kids will be suspended. The woman listens quietly, and when the principal shows her the file listing all the perpetrators, she's stunned to see a familiar face, and she quickly asks what the hell Sean's photo is doing in the file. Let's turn our attention to the dead mansion and check what's up with this unhinged organization. Inside, the director was on a call, receiving the rundown of what happened to Rachel's mission, and he sounded pissed. Back in her everyday undisguised look, Rachel could only apologize to her boss. She explained that she ordered Eugene to kill the old woman, but that plan did not pan out as it was supposed to. Rachel attributed the failure to the kid being a defective and useless product incapable of killing an old woman. He's a dud who can't even carry out an order properly. The director halted Rachel's angry rant, steering the conversation to what he really wanted to hear. He had already handed down the order to retrieve Eugene and leave the old woman alone, and yet she still went crazy and ordered the kid to eliminate the poor woman. From the director's perspective, Rachel is the one failing to carry out the mansion's orders properly, and you really don't want to disobey this man. She insisted that the only thing she failed at was retrieving Sean. However, the director placed great importance on promises regardless of who the promise was made to. That's just his principle. With a crazed look, the director preached that before God, there should only be faith and trust. Everything else aside from those is heresy. However, there are still good children who lack faith. He had no choice but to create the controlling measure called the 3 principles. So, Rachel must remember the consequences of uncontrolled and unexpected events from the past. Orders, principles, and promises. These are the absolute rules of Dead Mansion. Hearing the director's preaching over the phone, Rachel's faith was stoked. But she was still concerned about the retrieval of Sean. They can't give up so easily. The director has other plans for that in the near future, though. There are many ways to handle that matter without directly touching the old woman and making an enemy out of Sean. Mary, who posed as Eugene's sister, had already started the operation using her multiple smartphones. The very next day, Sean went to school as usual. He looked deathly tired and bored, and the lectures had not even started yet. He noticed that some of his classmates were looking at him differently. There were hints of fear and vigilance in their eyes. Walking to his seat, he casually asked his seatmate what was up and why everyone was acting so weird. Maybe people are just on edge for an exam he didn't know about. Seeing as his seatmate was tight-lipped, Sean got a little frustrated. The first ones to talk to him were the big bastards sitting in the last row of the class. They wanted to know if what they heard about Park Chyon was for real. It turned out that Mary had already propagated photos of Sean choking out Hyunho. It was a pretty blatant piece of evidence that he was a bully. He could quickly tell that this was a low-quality photoshopped image, but for untrained eyes, it probably looked real. When asked where they got the pictures, the big bastards at the back of the class seemed reluctant to spill. After a few seconds of thinking, the three big bastards lowered their heads to apologize, admitting that they were wrong all this time. There were rumors going around that Park Chyan beat up Joseph, taking the guy on as an underling. This ridiculous rumor had already spread all over the school. They were saying that Joseph was terrified of Chyan. There were even reports of him being friends with gangsters. They had all the pictures to back it up, and these photos were going too far. Word is that Chyan ordered Joseph to take care of that Hyunho kid in the first place. Hearing that last bit of rumor made his stomach turn. What are these people talking about now? He tried to vehemently deny any involvement with the tragedy that Hyunho went through, but no one believed his words. Just like that, his name was dragged through the mud in just a single night. No matter how badly he wanted to deny the allegations, no one would believe him. It also attracted the attention of the wrong crowd, like the big bastards in the back row. They were shoving and pushing people around Chyan, trying to suck up to the new big dog in town. The big bastard even threatened an innocent bystander to shut up or end up like Hyunho. Hearing those threats, Chyan stepped in to clamp the bastard's heavy hand. Chyan laughed, playing it off like he was trying to hide his involvement. He then invited the big bastard Sumjin outside to give them the real story of what actually happened. The other classmates were visibly fearful and disgusted by his words and demeanor. But this was the only way he could control the situation. Dead Mansion is really putting him through social torture. He led all the thugs out of the room with the same lackadaisical attitude he always had. As soon as they got far enough, the classroom erupted with muted discussions regarding Park Chyan's behavior. With the attack on his image underway, Chyan had to skip today's classes to dig for more information. He hung out with a bunch of thugs behind the school grounds. He found out that everybody received the photoshopped pictures in the group chat earlier this morning before school. The account just shared the photo, stirred the pot with a few words, and left. Of course, the highest names on the suspect list were those persistent Dead Mansion people. He still can't pinpoint their endgame with this plan, though. For now, he'll play along, acting like he just wanted to lead a quiet school life. But the cat's out of the bag now. He even mentioned transferring to another school again. His mood darkened as he told the big bastards that he wanted to graduate without trouble. He doesn't want to get caught up in pranks like this. He's way past the point of troubling himself with childish problems. He has his hands full with the world of adults. So he tasked the big body bastards to make sure that this matter didn't spread any further. Calling them his crew, keeping this quiet was their first job. Hearing Chyan order them around, calling them a crew, made these big boys blush like schoolgirls. While he was receiving their praise, a familiar figure just happened to pass by the dark alleyway. It was none other than Hyunho's mom. She just saw Chyan interacting with what looked like a bad crowd. This brings us back to the principal's office, where she was trying to deny that Chyan was involved in her son's case. She firmly believed that Chyan and Hyunho were friends, and there must have been some kind of misunderstanding along the way. But the principal had already gotten hold of the infamous photo circulating around the school. In addition, there's a testimony that he hung out with Joseph in the past. With all the available information planted recently, even the principal believed that Park Chyan was the original instigator of this mess. Hyunho's mother sat in that office, her mind reeling from disbelief. The principal added that contacting Chyan's parents was impossible. They seemed to think that the kid didn't receive a proper family education. As an educator, the principal knew far too many cases where a child such as Chyan could easily go astray. Humbly wiping his sweaty face, the principal urged the old lady to stop trusting the kid so much. Meanwhile, Chyan still wasn't seeing the bigger picture. He only hoped that the rumors would quiet down and eventually die out. Those buff bros have a surprisingly innocent side to them. They were so easily manipulated into becoming his underlings. Just as he was laughing to himself, Sean noticed something odd nearby. He stopped laughing and asked the figure hiding behind the alley if her name was Mary. She eventually showed herself with a wide smile. She thought she was hiding pretty well, so she wasn't expecting to get spotted so fast. As professional advice, Sean urged her to erase that strong coffee smell before going on a covert mission. This happened in front of Hyunho's house last time too. Mary was quite shocked to hear that the legendary Sean could even catch a whiff of someone's scent from so far away. It was almost creepy in a way. Sean took the opportunity to ask what her deal was, and what she got from making his life more complicated than it already was. But she knew that this young man enjoyed the thrill of it all. She even caught the cool act he showed those buff bastards in the dark alley. Sean cringed a little, not expecting to be under such heavy surveillance. Mary wanted to ask how it feels to be slotted into the top bully position at school. Sean finally snapped. Being in such a negative spotlight wasn't his style at all. He was already popular to begin with. But she wasn't talking about all that. She wanted to know what he thought about the cold and harsh gazes of his peers, the eyes filled with betrayal and contempt underneath. Mary genuinely wanted to know if Sean liked that stuff. Used to such crazy characters from the mansion, Sean stayed chill and confirmed if she was behind all those photos. He admitted that it was well made for its purpose, but it was still a little crude for his tastes. She made a perfect weapon, just good enough to fool the general public. Mary admitted that, given the tight schedule and limited resources, she had to settle for something crude. All Sean was hearing were excuses. Slowly lifting his eyes with a mocking grin, he turned to Mary and said the word, "Scratch." The young lady's smile did not dissipate, but her hand darted into her bag with unprecedented speed. Sean immediately jumped out of the way. His bag suffered 3 gunshot wounds from the conveniently obscured gun inside Mary's purse. He found himself hiding behind concrete walls while trying to pacify Mary. This was Korea. They can't just take a gun out whenever they want. Besides, the mansion's supposed to retrieve him, not kill him. When asked what Mary would do if he was hit, she just laughed and argued that Sean could easily deal with this much firepower without any problems. But in her own opinion, the legend of Sean should just die. She thinks it would be better if they just discard him, not waste more resources for his retrieval. Walking into the dark alley away from the prying eyes of the public, Mary casually tossed her ruined purse away. She was now creeping in with a Glock in her hand. Sean erased his presence, letting the young lady walk deeper into the darkness to find him. Once he deemed the timing was right, Sean pounced at Mary, aiming to remove the gun from her hand. His grip strength was so absurd that the young lady could not make the firearm budge with 2 hands. He slammed Mary right into the nearby wall, hoping to shake her enough to let go of the Glock. But the girl was tough. She knew how to minimize impact damage. More importantly, she knew how to retaliate. Lifting her legs, Mary drew a hidden blade from under her skirt. It was just a tiny knife between her knuckles, but the experience she had wielding such a sneaky weapon made her deadly. Sean immediately protected his vital areas, but he was forced to take Mary's sudden attack. His eyes were as clear as they could be. While moving with zero wasted motion, he asked if this was all she had. Maybe Dead Mansion is really dead now if this is their best. Sean eventually got her in a chokehold, swiping the gun away. He pinned the young lady down on the cold, hard ground of the streets. Keeping her in place with one hand and balling his fist with the other, Mary must have never expected to go down so quickly. Instead of despair, she rolled over with a sly smile on her face. When it came to the matter of being defeated, Mary would like to beg to differ. That immediately became clear when a familiar voice made Sean snap out of his murderous daze. It was Hyunho's mom. She had just finished discussing Cheyenne with the principal, fighting for his name. Now, the young man was out in the street, towering over a young girl, seemingly raising his fist against her. Suddenly, the poor mother didn't know what to believe anymore. This polite young man was supposed to be her son's friend, so why was he behaving like a thug? Mary might be the one lying down on the floor, but she had the smile of someone very pleased with herself. Hyunho's mom finally asked Park Cheyenne if it really was him who hurt her son. Cheyenne immediately sobered up, realizing what his position might look like to those who didn't have the assassination context. Mary was not going to let him get another word of explanation in, though. The young lady played up her distress, getting up from the ground and crying while pleading for Hyunho's mother. Given that they were partly acquainted with one another, the mom asked what exactly was going on with Mary and Cheyenne. No matter how much he tried to discredit her words, he was unable to do so. When the mom yelled at him, calling his full name, Cheyenne was stunned. His obedience made it impossible to go against her words. When she ordered him to stay right where he was standing, he had no other choice but to follow. So, he did not dare move another inch. Balling his fist in frustration, he recalled the 3 principles. A parent's command was absolute. Mary then started pouring toxic ideas into the mom's ears. On that day, when she got Eugene back home, the kid's body was covered in bruises, and they wouldn't talk about the injuries. According to Mary, the kid kept insisting that brother Cheyenne had done it. Recalling that time when she caught Cheyenne wrestling with the kid as Cheyenne made an excuse that they were just doing some morning exercises, it wasn't hard for Hyunho's mom to connect the dots. There was also the principal's assessment and the testimony regarding Cheyenne's link with Joseph. Mary continued that she just wanted to ask Cheyenne about what really happened, only for the young man to lash out and hit her in the process. Cheyenne naturally denied these allegations as much as he could. The dubious Mary was laughing at him on the inside. They might not be allowed to touch Sean's new mother, but there are plenty of ways to get to him without the threat of violence. Sean tried his best to appeal to the mom. He asserted that Mary was a liar, and all it got him was a crisp slap on the face. Sean was speechless. His mom had just laid her hands on him. According to the principals, all Dead Mansion has to do is make the current parent give up on Sean herself. Right now, that's precisely what she was doing. As the upset old lady continued to express her disappointment and anger, Sean feared for her following words. Finally, she told him to never come back ever again. That was the final nail in the coffin. Everything went as Mary had planned. She was quite a genius. As she was about to get into the next phase of her plans, a familiar disguised face made itself known. Her stride was broad and powerful. She commanded an air of confidence and control. It was none other than Sister Rachel in her mommy disguise. It was time for her to swoop in and play the role of the disgruntled parent of a troublemaking child. Lifting her glasses, she sounded like an exhausted mother who couldn't handle the antics of a hopeless child. When she told Cheyenne that it was about time to go home now, the young man was visibly shaken. He did not want to return. Back in the dead mansion, the director flashed his disgusting grin, showing his bejeweled teeth. On the phone, he had just received updates regarding the success of Sean's retrieval. He praised Mary for such an excellent job. The perv was so excited at the prospect of his greatest weapon coming back that he lost all strength in his knees. He kneeled before a painting of the Lord and thanked the heavens for answering his prayers. The director attributed all the success to Mary and her twisted ideas. She made a truly befitting resolution as Dead Mansion's most excellent strategist. Acting modest despite all the praise, Mary insisted that she just did what the director wished for, and she would continue doing so. When the old perv started going on and on about how the legend of Dead Mansion was finally going home, that Sean was finally joining their ranks again, Mary's mood took a turn for the worse. Her next orders were to return as quickly as possible, and she accepted the task without a fuss. On the other side of the room were Sister Rachel and the parentless weapon, Sean. They were busy eating pizza, ice cream, spicy noodles, and all kinds of good food. Rachel commented on how similar their tastes were when it came to food, knowing full well that Sean was just eating whatever she ordered him to eat. On second look, this demonic nun was actually forcing him to eat pineapple pizza with a side of mint ice cream. This was worse than torture, if you ask me. This was Rachel's way of making sure that Sean severed his connection with that accidental parent. Just like before, she had complete control over the young man's actions. She was sure that Dead Mansion could finally regain ownership over their star. Meanwhile, Sean was practically begging for milk to counteract the heat lingering in his mouth. While busy with the torturous dinner, a man sitting in a wheelchair arrives to check on Rachel and her mission of capturing Sean. It turned out to be Joseph's psychopathic dad, Kwon Byung-woo. He was also the one backing up Dead Mansion by providing Sister Rachel's accommodations and resources. When asked, she replied that the most expensive penthouse in the area they were being housed in was passable. It was not too bad. Sean reckoned that the voice of that vegetable sounded familiar. The psycho wasn't bothered by all the nonsense. All he cared about was catching the damned brat that put him in the chair. He would gladly spend any amount of money to make it happen. Realizing who this psycho was, Sean snapped out of his spicy noodle drunkenness and stood up from his seat. He teased that the psycho must be trying out cosplay or something with all the bandages and the wheelchair. This naturally pissed off Joseph's father. This encounter could have escalated out of control if it had not been for Sister Rachel to step in with authority. Pulling out a mini Uzi from God knows where, she pointed its muzzle at the wheelchair-bound psycho. She asserted that, as discussed, Dead Mansion would take custody of Sean and no one else. In return, the organization would not touch Joseph. That was the condition of their deal. The psycho turned around and assured her that he was clear on the details. This was just business after all. Before heading out, the psycho added that Sean was not the only one he was seeking revenge on. Since this didn't concern her at all, Sister Rachel gave the psycho the green light to handle his revenge against other people as he wished. Sitting in front of Sean, Rachel teased that if the psycho guy went on to kill Hyunho's mom as revenge, the Dead Mansion wouldn't lift a finger to retaliate. Sure, the organization promised not to touch the old woman, but they never agreed to a protection mission either. Realizing that Hyunho's mom might be in grave danger without any sort of protection, something inside Sean was spurred on. He imagined what she must be doing right now. She would be diligently preparing all those delicious snacks to sell. A customer approached the stall and promptly ordered one of her famous rice cakes. The customer even added a few more fried snacks too. Just as Sean was thinking about her, she was also thinking about the kid. She saw a child eager to make her feel better in the toughest time of her life. The customer interrupted her thoughts by adding some delicious-looking kimbap to his order. She just could not shake the thoughts of that sweet young man away. Why would there be pictures of him seemingly messing with Hyunho? Believing all the shady information around, she tried to convince herself that the young man was just a bad child. He was a thug who put her son in the hospital. Distracted by everything going on inside her mind, the old lady accidentally cut her finger. She dropped the knife on the floor as the shock of being wounded made her curl in pain. Seeing this, the customer hurriedly entered the kitchen to see if she was okay, as he could see a lot of bleeding. The mother kept insisting that she was okay. With tears in her eyes, she assured the customer and herself that it would stop soon. Mr. Customer calmed down upon hearing that. Then, this bastard started pulling out a hidden knife from his pockets. Gripping the blade while keeping it obscured, the seemingly concerned customer slowly closed the remaining gap between him and the target. He remembered receiving the orders from the boss, so he would not have to worry about the cleanup after the job. All he had to do was sneak up to the old lady and go for the kill, and their partner company would handle everything after that. Just one hiccup though, Hyunho's mom just picked up a phone call. She must have just received massive news as her eyes darted open in shock upon hearing what the person on the other line said. Hyunho's mom hurriedly turned around and ran out of the shop. She didn't even see the man's knife. She just told the customer to eat as much as he wanted free of charge. When asked where she was going, she simply answered that she was heading for her son. It turned out that Hyunho had miraculously regained consciousness. That phone call was from the hospital, notifying his mom that the kid had awakened. Doctors and nurses hurriedly poured into the hospital room to assess Hyunho's condition. The kid seemed responsive, but it was still pretty hard for him to speak. The doctor advised that he take it easy and stop pushing too hard. When asked if he remembered anything before getting hurt, the young man stared at the ceiling and solemnly answered that he did. The last thing he remembered was yelling at his mom and feeling like the biggest asshole for it. He could remember her standing meekly and apologizing for doing something nice for her little boy. While he was unconscious, all he could think about was how wrong he was for treating his mom with so much disrespect. All he wanted to do was apologize to her. Then the waterworks finally came down. Experiencing all these overwhelming emotions, Hyunho seemingly regressed to a kid desperately looking for his mom. He missed her dearly, and he felt horrible about how their last interaction turned out. As if on cue, his mom barged into the room. She was still red and exhausted from running all the way to her son's hospital room. She made her way in between the doctors and nurses. She only had eyes for her son. The medical practitioners around the old lady eventually noticed that there was blood on her hands. Quite a lot of it, actually. Hyunho grabbed her bloody hand and apologized with as much sincerity as he could muster. He wasn't all there yet mentally, but he just wanted to tell his mom that he was wrong. He was so wrapped up in his own problems that he hurt his mom along the way. Hearing those words from a son you thought was never going to wake up overwhelmed the old lady with all kinds of emotions. Near the door, the assassin customer sent by the psycho was still tailing the poor old lady. He called his boss, telling him that the mom and son were in the same location. They could just simply handle the two together when the chance presented itself. But the boss ordered the operation to stop. The psycho smiled menacingly as he formulated a change of plans. Back in the penthouse, Sister Rachel was going sicko mode on the furniture around her. Nothing was spared from her rage. Her mouth was bleeding while she was holding her submachine gun. She was chanting curses as if she had been wronged by someone. That's because she had been. That psycho, Joseph's father, dared to kidnap Sean, breaking their agreement. The psycho had just thought of a much more exciting plan. He could personally handle Hyunho and his mother right in front of Sean's eyes. Going back a few days ago, we went to the White Tiger Job Center, where laborers are always for hire. Inside, Sister Rachel felt uneasy with her mission. Beside her was that kid, Eugene. Both were on pins and needles while sitting on the couch, waiting for any updates. They were greeted by a pretty office lady with a nice smile. In her hand were 3 cups of coffee for herself and the guests. Rachel criticized the lady for moving so slowly, asking if making her wait so long was worth it. The office lady laughed lightly and apologized for taking so long. She explained that the market and Byungwoo Construction's headquarters were in shambles due to the many things that had to tally after Rachel had made such a big mess. The lady offered Eugene a little cup of hot chocolate, reminding him to drink slowly. Surprised, the kid thanked her for offering. Sister Rachel looked unamused. They were shelling out quite a bit of cash, so a little trouble shouldn't be bothersome. This was a professional agreement after all. Hearing her mention professionalism, the office lady took a seat and agreed they should conduct themselves as professionals. But isn't it deeply unprofessional when one party makes a massive mess without considering the aftermath? That's what the office lady thought. Hearing the lady take a jab at her actions annoyed Sister Rachel. She was quite adept at disguising her words with pleasantries, though. Eugene just sat there in the middle of all the tension, thinking he should have just stayed at the house. Anyway, the office lady had already taken care of everything, and it was up to Rachel to look at the reports, even though she was being blatantly disrespected by coffee served in a paper cup. Byungwoo Constructions also said they didn't need any compensation for damages. The office lady was quite curious about that. Rachel answered that it was an equal exchange between two parties. That's how professionals get things done. Whatever mess Byungwoo Constructions made would have nothing to do with the dead mansion. But the office lady gravely advised Rachel to take a more careful approach from now on. Curious about the ominous tone, Rachel asked what that advice meant. The office lady asserted that professionals should deal with other professionals, not with reckless delinquents. This Byungwoo Constructions organization was a little too hard to trust. Against Rachel's judgment, maybe they were not worthy of being business partners. Back to the present, she was experiencing the fallout of not listening to the office lady's advice and distrust for the dubious Kwon Byung-woo. The chairs and tables of the penthouse suffered in the hands of the angry nun. When she brings out the guns, you know it's serious. It turned out that the psycho had Sean kidnapped and boarded in a moving truck. Kwon Byung-woo's lifeless eyes poked through the bandages, pleased with the sight of the young man he so badly wanted to punish. He was not expecting such an efficient killing machine to be so useless without the orders of a parent. He rolled up to the young man, petting Sean's hair. Now that he's under Dead Mansion's guidelines, Sean can't really do anything without their proper orders. The psycho was very